Hello and welcome to Picking Up the Crap for December 2013. Picking Up the Crap is a series dedicated to the hardware and software sales for the NPD North American video game market. In this series, I give out leaked numbers from reliable NPD sources gathered by the people at Neogaf. While sometimes we do get official numbers released by the companies involved due to press release, most of the time, the overall numbers are given to us by people who have inside NPD official numbers, but officially cannot release them to the public. So they kind of steer us in the right direction, giving us guesstimations, but more accurate than, let's say, other video game websites. Here are your top 10 best-selling games for the month of December 2013 across all platforms. Also, I have estimates of what they sold during the month of December. At number 1, selling across 6 platforms, selling between 2.8 and 2.7 million copies, Call of Duty Ghost. At number 2, selling across 5 platforms, selling between 1.4 and 1.3 million copies in the month of December, Battlefield 4. At number 3, selling across 6 platforms, at around 1.3 million copies, Just Dance 2014. At number 4, selling across 4 platforms, selling around 1.2 million copies, Madden NFL 25. At number 5, selling on 5 platforms, around that 1.2 1.1 million range, NBA 2K14. At number 6, selling across 6 platforms, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, selling around 1.2 to 1.1 million range. At number 7, selling across 2 platforms, Grand Theft Auto 5, selling above 1 million copies. At number 8, selling across 8 platforms, Lego Marvel Superheroes, selling below 1 million copies but above 500,000 copies. At number 9, selling on 5 platforms, FIFA 14, selling a little bit above 500,000 copies. And finally, at number 10, selling across 7 platforms, Skylanders Swap Force, somewhere around 500,000 copies sold or below. Now, here are the hardware sales numbers for the month of December 2013. Most of these numbers are once again guesstimations from NPD leakers, but we do have 2 official numbers from a press release. Your best-selling piece of hardware for the month of December was the Nintendo 3DS, guesstimated to sell around 1.1 million systems. Your best-selling home console and next-generation console was the Xbox One, officially selling 908,000 systems. Number 3, the PlayStation 4, selling around 863,000 systems. Number 4, the Xbox 360, officially selling 643,000 systems. Number 5, selling around 481,000 systems, the Nintendo Wii U. Number 6, selling around 299,000 systems, the PlayStation 3. Number 7, selling around 150,000 systems, the Nintendo Wii. And finally, selling below 95,000 systems in the month of December, the PlayStation Vita. It's now time for the going public segment of this video. This is usually where I take a certain subject, a certain story that happened during the NPD month and kind of discuss it, or I look at the numbers and go in further detail. In this segment, there's so many things to talk about. I kind of want to give you little small tidbits information of various things that I found out and I learned during the NPD report, and just highlight them just so you can get an idea of the overall picture of what's going on currently right now in the industry. Number 1, the Xbox One was the best-selling home console for December, selling about almost 1 million systems, exactly 908,000 systems. Now, remember this, the Xbox One is fully in stock. Microsoft has supplied the console to all the stores. No matter where you go, you can find an Xbox One if you really want one. it outsold the PS4 by maybe 50,000 systems. But the PS4 is hard to find, mainly because Sony is selling it in way more countries than Microsoft currently, and it recently had their real big Europe release, and so Sony is having a hard time putting consoles in these areas because there's so many areas they're selling in, and they're selling pretty well. So for the fanboy people out there, the console war people out there, the Xbox One is selling, and it's selling real well for it doesn't cost that much. But at the same time, the PS4 numbers would have been a lot better if they had more consoles on these shelves to sell. Despite having 2 new consoles on the market this year, overall year to year, this December, the industry is only up 5% when it comes to hardware compared to last year's December. Think about that. Last year, we just had the release of the Wii U. This year, we have the Xbox One and the PS4, and overall, only a 5% growth. Pretty telling. When it comes to software sold for both of these consoles, currently the Xbox One is in the lead, selling around 4.8 million pieces of software, retail software, where the PS4 is only selling about 4.2. A track ratio right now for both consoles is around 3 games a system, 2.5 games a system. The Xbox One, with the more exclusives at launch, have sold more first-party software, second-party software, compared to the PS4. The Xbox has sold about 1.5 million first-party, second-party games, where the PS4 has sold around 600,000 first-party, second-party games. Now, when it comes to third-party software, the PS4 has sold the most. Not by a lot, 3.6 million to 3.3 million pieces of software. Still, the major players in this generation, the first-person shooter genre, going with Call of Duty Ghosts and Battlefield 4, have sold best on Xbox One, just like they did on the 360 the last generation. My last little statement I want to make on the next generation consoles, now that we're fully in the next generation, both the Xbox One and the PS4 have had the best launch hardware sale numbers wise than we've had in probably the past 2 console cycles. Both selling really well compared to the launch of the 360, the PS3, and the Wii. Now, what did this mean for the gaming industry? What is this saying currently about what's going on? Well, I mean, it can say a lot of things. One thing for sure is we know that gamers wanted new consoles badly. The console cycle before went longer than it's supposed to have. Console cycles usually go 5 to 6 years. This went to like 7 to 8 years long. There's console fatigue, and people want new products to buy. As we see, when it comes to software side, the numbers are not backing where people buy these consoles because they want new games. Mainly they just want a new hardware and just sit on it until the games they really want to come out. What did it say? Well, maybe their user base really are loyal gamers who buy the products. Thus, they're willing to, first adopters are willing to buy that console, sit on it, and wait for those great games. Or maybe they fell into the hype of the consoles. The Xbox One had a lot of things going against it. Its price, the direction Microsoft's trying to take with it, but as you can see, with the numbers it sold, at the price it was at, and the marketing Microsoft was throwing out there, and the awareness Microsoft was throwing out there, and just the availability Microsoft was throwing out there, a lot of people went down and bought their systems. It sold in its first month 5 times what the PS3 sold in its first month at the same, about a similar price. And in the second month, it sold double what the PS3 sold at near the similar price. What did I say about the Xbox gamer, the Microsoft system buyer? Maybe they're more loyal than the PS3 owners were 10 years ago. When it comes to PS4, the PS4 had a great launch period, selling huge numbers. Part of that due to the price. Part of that is due to what happened at E3. The PS4 has become the people's champ when it comes to consoles. Sony has definitely sold this whole thing. We're about the gamers. We're about what you want to do, and people are behind it. They're backing it. So after saying all of that, we really want to have a great idea of where the Xbox One and the PS4 really stand until sometime in March, after both systems have went through the very slow dead time of the year, which are the months of January, February, and March. And going public segment number 2, I want to discuss Nintendo and the Nintendo Wii U and the Nintendo 3DS. both making some news during the NPD December month, and I just want to cover them a little bit, touch base on them a little bit. First and foremost, the Nintendo Wii U selling around 481 systems in the month of December. So far, is the best month the Wii U has had in its entire life in the United States, even counting the launch period last year and the following month, the following December. The 481 sold in December this year is the best is sold. Nintendo should feel positive about that. That's a good sign. But at the same time, that 481 plus the around 300,000 sold in November puts the Wii U at about 800,000 sold for the holiday season. That number is not really impressive in the overall big picture. Basically, the Xbox One and the PS4 outsold the Wii U in 1 month that it did in 2 months. And unfortunately, those numbers will fall again because we're entering the slow time of the year, January, February, March. Nintendo currently only has one new game releasing within that time period, and that's the delayed Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze for the Wii U that comes out in early February. After that, we have no official release dates on any of the other big games coming out for the rest of the year. These games that Nintendo definitely needs to help try to build some momentum from December. Overall, with Nintendo recently changing their forecast once again for the Wii U, it's clear to see that they are very disappointed in the effect that the games they released the last 3 or 4 months in 2013 had on the Wii U. While some high-profile games finally were released, and these games receiving all kind of critical acclaim, they just wasn't really blowing up the market space when it comes to sales. And in effect, they didn't push people to go out to buy Wii U's as much as Nintendo had hoped they would have. Nintendo was really looking forward to a big holiday season to help gain momentum and help put them closer to their overall goals. And as we can see, it didn't happen. So it will be really interesting to see what Nintendo has to say during their financial quarter release that happens in February, and then also probably the upcoming Nintendo Direct. Once we get a better idea of when the games they have in development are going to release, we can kind of project what the Wii U might be able to do when it comes to selling hardware in the future. Next, let's move to the Nintendo 3DS, the best-selling device for the month of December. Also, for the entire year, the best-selling piece of gaming hardware for the entire year, selling for the entire year 3.8 million systems. This is nothing to be ashamed about, and if I'm Nintendo, I should feel really good about it, especially in the handheld market the way it currently is, where you're dealing with the mobile game devices and all that kind of stuff. Still, I want to let you guys know this. In the past 12 years that the NPD has been tracking video game hardware and software sales, the 3.8 million sold this year in 2013 by the Nintendo 3DS as the best-selling piece of hardware for the entire year is the lowest best-selling device for the entire year in like the past 12 years. Before that, the previous lowest number goes to the Xbox 360 in 2012 and the Nintendo DS in 2006, both selling 5.3 million systems those years. The highest number recorded between 2001 and 2013 was 2009 by the Nintendo DS, selling 11.12 million systems for a portable device. And the highest selling console during that time period was 2008, the Nintendo Wii, selling 10.2 million systems. So really, what is that saying currently about the industry as a whole? That the 3DS, which we know is not nowhere near the juggernaut its predecessor was, the DS was, wins the entire year, selling 3.8 million systems. What does that say about the industry as a whole? Alright, in this last segment of Going Public, I just want to talk about video games and software. For the longest time, as a gamer, we all believe one golden rule: software sells hardware. You don't buy consoles to have consoles. You buy consoles to play games. The games determine if you're going to buy a console. And for the most part, for a long time, video games were made strictly for consoles. There have been games that have been ported over from PC and vice versa, but most games have been exclusive to home consoles, and that what kept them in business. That what kept us our desire to own home consoles. But as we know, with the Steam box and just the PC service of Steam and everything else, you can buy video games now across any device that's on the planet, and most of the times way cheaper than actually buying them at GameStop or at stores. And so, after saying all that, I'm trying to figure out what really determines if a gamer wants to spend their money on buying a game. I know games are expensive, but games always been expensive. You go back to the Super Nintendo era, you was paying more for games then than you actually are paying now for certain games. And so, this whole thing that games are too expensive for us to buy, and we rather buy used, I'm not buying that. But I will say, if you can buy a game on Steam for way cheap than you can on a home console, I can see that being a deciding factor. Why I say this is, consoles like the PlayStation Vita, we understand why it's not doing well, because we all believe it has no games. Now, what determines no games? What I mean is, what determines if a game is desirable enough for you to spend your money on and go buy it? The PlayStation Vita only sold below 95,000 systems in the month of December. And this is after the launch of the PS4, where we know Sony's been trying to push them together. You need a PS4, you need a Vita for the remote play, the PlayStation Now service, all that stuff. They're working their hardest to make you believe you need to own this platform. But people are not buying it because they feel it has no games, even though there are somewhat quality name games on the console. But in the end, people are not spending their money on those games. And this is across the board, no matter what console you own. There's games on these consoles, but the numbers that the games have are not showing that there's a desire to own these games. And in this segment, I want to give you some of these numbers of these games, some of these high-profile games that are released across all consoles, and this, and ask you, the viewer who's listening right now, what determines you buying or not buying it? When we all agree that not all the best games have the best sales. I mean, this goes even into like movies. There's movies that make all kind of huge money, which are total garbage, and there's movies that win all kind of awards that don't make nothing. And that's just the way of life, I guess. Usually, movies just need to do one thing to determine if you're going to go buy them or not, and that's pretty much entertain you. And so, when you don't buy a game, are you saying that either it's quality, it don't entertain you, or it's not providing you a certain need at the moment? I'm trying to figure that out, because usually the games that are good entertain me, and so I buy them. It's so simple to me like that. But when you look at some of the numbers of these games, it kind of just make you ask the question, what's happening here? What's going on? So here are the numbers. As we know, the PlayStation Vita is doing really, it's a failure here in the United States. It does well in Japan, it's doing okay in Europe, but it's a failure in the United States, selling, like I said, below 95,000 systems. Here's some of the games that have released on the Vita. Their lifetime to date sales of these games. Exclusive games you can only get on the Vita. Killzone Mercenaries has only sold at retail 102,000 copies. Another exclusive, Soul Sacrifice, which has done extremely well in Japan, has only sold 72,000 copies here in the United States. Another critically acclaimed game for the Vita, Tearaway, year to date has only sold 50,000 copies here in the United States. Low console sales, low game sales. It kind of makes sense, right? Let's go with the Wii U, another struggling piece of hardware. And this is a console that's went through many game droughts, which gone through people wanting certain games, ask for certain games, Nintendo actually going and paying people to make games for them. And finally, by the middle of the year, they start producing some games, releasing some games at a regularly schedule, once every month, once every other month. But games are coming out. Did you know Super Mario 3D World, which released 2 months ago, is now, this year, the best-selling Wii U game released in 2013. Now, the game that held that title before then was Lego City Undercover, another exclusive that Nintendo paid for to get made for them, which launched early in the year during March. The Wii Super Mario 3D World has now outsold that twice, by two over. With that game, Lego City Undercover only selling 242,000 copies. Again, you can only get on the Wii U. Next, let's go to another exclusive, Pikmin 3, selling around the summer, down that time period. It is now year-to-date at retail, only sold 210,000 copies in the United States. Next, we have Sonic Lost World, another exclusive, only on Wii U, released a little bit before Christmas, September or October to be correct. Has only sold year-to-date in the United States at retail 82,000 copies on the Wii U. And then another game Nintendo paid for, The Wonderful 101, released middle of the year. Not really promoted at all by Nintendo, so it's understandable it's not selling well. But the idea that it only sold 49,000 copies in the United States, I mean, if you're Nintendo, would you go pay for someone to make you another game? I know if you don't promote it, it's kind of your fault, but still. No word of mouth, no nothing. Last but not least, another game that really upsets me, because I look forward to this franchise being part of the Nintendo's consoles, being part of the Western market from here on out. But when you're Nintendo and you help provide money for a console version of a portable game, you upport it to HD, you add online, all the features you will want in this game, and you only sell 93,000 copies at retail. I was talking about Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate for the Wii U. You only sell 93,000 copies of this game at retail. What's the damn point? Honestly, what's the damn point? When you look at the sales of Super Mario 3D World, which has sold 500,000 copies here in the United States, 570,000 copies to be exact, in 2 months. While those numbers are decent, a Mario game during the holiday is underperforming. Was this game so better if it was Super Mario Galaxy 3? Is that why people really go out there and buy it? We'll never know, but it's a simple question I want to ask. The same can be said for The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, which has sold a little bit above 570,000 copies in the United States retail. If that game was a Majora's Mask remake, 3D remake for the 3DS, well, that is sold way better. Things like this make me wonder about the current state of games and the people's desire to buy them. You look at games like God of War Ascension for the PS3, which is on a user base of 20 million plus PS3s in the United States currently. That game year-to-date only in the United States has sold 783,000 copies. There's 20 million plus PS3s in the United States, and only 783 people bought the game at retail, brand new. The same for God of War Judgment, which is on a Xbox 360 user base in the United States around 30 million. Only, as of right now, the same amount, 783,000 people bought that for the Xbox 360, brand new at retail. And these are games that usually sell 5 million copies, per release worldwide. Japan is not covering the slack of both those games, and Europe can't be selling all those games, so they're not hitting their traditional mark. But then there are things that are consistent, that make sense. Pokemon, released this year in the United States, combined in the US, has sold 3.1 million copies across retail across both games. That's consistent with the Pokemon brand. Then games like Just Dance 2014 for the Nintendo Wii in December sold below 800,000 copies in the United States. And this is on the Wii, a system that's been pretty much dead in the market for 3 years now. People are still buying that game on the console they figure is familiar with. So that audience is still there. But they're not willing to upgrade with that game to the other consoles yet, it seems. Throw in the kind of underperforming sales of the exclusives for the Xbox One and PS4 at launch, all games selling below 500,000 copies in the first 2 months on those consoles, and then established franchise iconic franchises bombing at retail. Gran Turismo 6 released on the PS3, only sold in December on its release 160,000 copies. So what that says is that saying that the realistic sim racer genre is dead, and if so, then what that means for the new PS4 game coming out that they're really pushing. If they're not buying Gran Turismo, why would they buy that? Alright, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this picking up the crap video. I'm sorry for it being real long, but a lot of things I wanted to go over with and just talk about. Like I said, I'm just giving you my opinion. This is not a video about proving how right I am, how smart I am. I'm just telling you what I'm looking at and just giving you information about it. You know, I'm too old to be a person talking about fanboy stuff, console war stuff, who's a favorite character, all that kind of jazz. I want to have mature discussions about gaming, and the way you can do that, you got to talk about mature subject matter. And unfortunately, that deals with business, trying to understand why stuff's not selling, what is selling, why things are happening the way they are, and so you can always be prepared about future outcomes. All right, y'all. Until next month, this is your boy, the one and only Jodecideion, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.